place between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're back here live on FTC Radio Live. It's December 30th, 2021. 2 days left in this. I don't even know what to call this year. It was a year. It was another one on the calendar. We all hope that 2022 is going to be just a tad bit better. It really can't get much worse. But then again, we said it a year ago. Anyway, so that's right. We're live. We were off yesterday, as we have been most Wednesday afternoons. We kind of take a little midweek break, and normally we're coming back to talk football tonight, but there's no football tonight, John. So what the hell are we going to do?
Well, we're going to wish LeBron James a happy birthday. He turns 37 today, and also Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods turns 45. Pretty amazing that Tiger Woods and LeBron James have the same birthday.
Yeah, maybe it's just something about that day. I don't know. Let's track back months. December. Let's see, 12 March. Maybe it's spring break. Maybe it was a spring break. Maybe it was a first day of spring type of thing. Maybe again, maybe it's a coincidence that that happened for both of them. But no, obviously two greats of their respective professions. I said it before we got on the air. I said I will reluctantly give credit to your guy LeBron. I know you're obviously a big LeBron James guy. I don't follow basketball as much. I'll never sit here and pretend like I do, because if I say something stupid, at least I can be like, hey, I don't know. I already said that I don't follow it. So if I say something stupid, you can't fault me too much. But I have paid attention enough to know, what LeBron James is doing, it continues to defy logic. Same thing we see with Tom Brady. It's the older they get, the more they just continue to prove that certainly they're the best now. The discussion all-time great again is a discussion. Again, I don't necessarily have the prerequisite ability to discuss like I do quarterback, but the longer we go, it's getting harder and harder to make that anti-LeBron argument, even from someone who, my fan allegiance have forced me to dislike him on that level, and certainly that carries a heavy influence for a lot of people's judgment when it comes to ranking great players. Like, it's not a coincidence that the people that hate Tom Brady are the most are Packers and Chiefs fans, or at least it seems that way. And over the last 4 or 5 years, and you can see a pattern with that throughout history and all that. So that's just normal sports stuff. But when it comes to objectively looking at it, it's hard not to give the guy credit. Who you can correct me if I'm wrong. And again, more about certainly the current state of the NBA than I do. He's working his way into MVP discussion at 37.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though the Lakers are below 500, so it's difficult to give someone the MVP that's on a sub 500 team. But they've talked about Nikola Jokic being MVP again this year after winning it last year. There's only a game or two above the Lakers. Steph Curry finished third in MVP voting last year, and his team didn't even make the playoffs. So you can still give love to players that aren't playing on necessarily great teams, which is weird for LeBron because when he's healthy playing, his team is always a contender. It just hasn't worked that way with the Lakers. I think they'll make plenty of moves once the trade deadline approaches on February 10th. He may lead the league in scoring in his 19th year, which is pretty crazy. My thing with LeBron and Michael Jordan has always been, let's have a discussion about it. It's just a lot of people, especially my age or maybe a decade younger, are such Jordan zealots that they don't even want to hear about it. And to me, that's lunacy, right? That's like the older guys would always say, well, yeah, Tom Brady's the best quarterback, but he's not Jim Brown. Well, I think Brady has kind of surpassed Jim Brown as the greatest football player ever, but it's still a discussion because Brown was so dominant during his career. So I just like to have those discussions. Like, I'm a Mario Lemieux over Wayne Gretzky guy, and people push back and go, that's crazy. I go, well, it's really not. I mean, let's have that discussion. That's all I ask for.
Yeah, and look, obviously, I think much like we get certainly with quarterbacks in the NFL, a premature crowning, I think, leads to a lot of pushback and not look, LeBron came into the league with as much hype and for as much hype as he's had, you can easily argue that he's exceeded that, which is near
Yep.
impossible when it comes to um, how things are expectations are done. But even in his sense, even in his career, I think he was elevated to such a high level very early. Very early. We see it all the time with athletes. You know what I mean? And it's
Hmm.
kind of the reaction to it. So that breeds resentment. That breeds a lot of defensive um, thought processes from the guy that was the
Hmm.
guy before. So all these Michael Jordan fans,
Exactly.
folks that are my age and younger, who well 35 and a little bit over, and 35 and a little bit younger, the kids who grew up with Jordan, not necessarily the adults. I think maybe the adults maybe have a little bit better perspective because they did see guys before Jordan, some of that older era
Hmm.
of NBA basketball. But for my age group, the 35s to say 45s, or say 30 to 40 age group. You grew
Jordan's
up,
the guy.
yeah,
You can't even debate with them. Yeah.
yeah, and it's tough because like it's like I said, I can't necessarily blame them for the most part because again, like I said, when you're sitting there elevating a guy, and it happened early in LeBron's career, it was, oh, he's the greatest of all time. We're seeing it already in football, and I think at least in this LeBron Michael Jordan discussion, there actually is a discussion. Whereas right now, I think it's being done to players that again, it creates just a divide that is never going to be, you know, you're never going to reach a consensus because the divide has happened too much. You know what I mean? It's just it's never going to
Hmm.
repair itself. So you're always going to have that pushback. And again, same thing in the NBA. But at a certain point, though, it's like I obviously the thing working against LeBron is the victories in the finals. I mean, that is the saving grace for any anti-LeBron argument. It is
Hmm.
he didn't win enough. And there's some legitimacy to it. I'm not going to completely dismiss it, but like I've been saying, John, at a certain point, though, how can you deny just the sustained success? And when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, you don't win a Super Bowl. The game, the season is not necessarily a success. It's all relative to what the team is, but look at the Patriots, for example. If they didn't win a Super Bowl, forget just getting to it. If they didn't win, the season was a failure. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but the reality of it is, like 2007, I mean, you're talking about a 60-second difference from being one of the biggest collapses to being unanimously the greatest team of all time. That's how thin of a margin it is. So, do I think it's necessarily that thin in the NBA? Not necessarily because again, it's not a one game off. But when you put it in the context of NBA basketball, and you're talking about, oh, he's only won 4 times. Well, look, I'm not going to give him credit for losing to a great team like some LeBron fans do. I think that's a little bit too much. But I'm also not going to sit here and knock him because he went to 10 finals and only won
Right.
4. It's like that's absurd, like
He,
but yeah.
he's 4-6 in finals. Jordan was 6-0. So that's obviously the argument for Jordan. But to me, going to 10 finals is an incredible accomplishment. But you also have to look at in the context that Jordan never really beat a team as good as the Golden State team with Durant and Curry. Never beat a team as good as the San Antonio teams with Duncan, Ginobili, Parker,
Uh,
and the second championship they won
to
had
be
Kawhi
honest,
Leonard as MVP. So there's a little bit of that. I mean, Jordan did dominate the league in the '90s, but there was really not a lot of pushback. And people talk about the Knicks and Pacers in the East. They each had one Hall of Famer. I mean, LeBron's gone up against way more Hall of Famers in the finals and in the
honestly,
playoffs as much as Jordan.
I don't even think that's LeBron's strongest case. Like, because if you get into the, who have they faced, this, that, and the other, like you can sit there and say, well, tougher final opponents for LeBron, maybe weaker to the finals opponents for LeBron. You know what I'm saying? I think though. I
That's
think
what people
honestly,
will argue. I
yeah.
push back on Indiana and New York
Well,
being all that great because they each had just one Hall of Famer. So
yeah, but
like
you know,
Reggie
again,
Miller in Indiana was,
it's tougher.
was
It's tougher to. I think personally, I think it's tougher to lean on that. What I was going to say is the longevity, and not just longevity,
oh
but it's the sustained success over such a long period of time. I think is his
crazy.
greatest thing. So you know, to me, when people start, bringing up like, well, he played this opponent or that opponent, it's like, okay, it's so hard to really quantify that because we're talking about, first of all, eras of basketball that at certain times span about 25 years difference. So it's hard to sit there and use hindsight and look back and also look into the present and everything like that. So, I don't really like to put too much stock into that, but I think the longevity factor is one of the biggest pro LeBron things, and obviously coupled with the success. I mean, you can't, like, if he goes to 9 finals and lost all of them, you're not getting as much credit as if he goes
Right,
to 10 and loses 6. Like, I mean, you have to win
exactly.
at a certain point. Like, if he loses all
Oh, of course.
9, then I'm not going to give. But 4 and 6, coupled with everything else, again, it's getting harder and harder to make the debate against it. I'm not saying that it's over. I'm just saying that at a certain point you got to look at it objectively, and then you can really come to a decent
And Jordan
conclusion.
got breaks, right? Breaks in terms of he took breaks. I mean, we can debate whether he got suspended or not in 1993. Essentially, 2 years off. Went and played baseball. Kind of, healed his body a little bit. Although you could also make the argument that who in their right mind takes 2 years away from a sport, comes back, and then becomes the best player again. I mean,
Yeah,
that like
yeah.
I could picture like our two quarterbacks taking 2 years off and coming back in 2024 and still being the two best quarterbacks. That would be, would defy logic. But Jordan did do that.
I'd be very interested to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like 2 years away from everything. Like, to be honest with you,
I'd be living on a commune by
no.
that point.
Honestly, though, I don't think he could disappear for 2 years, and I'm glad. I'm glad you
Oh,
brought
no,
it up
he loves attention.
he does, and I brought this up, and I know a lot of people saw this, um, or heard this on Twitter over the last couple of days. But obviously, he does his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show, and I think separate from his abilities on the field, I think we can sit here and say that, like, his personality leaves a lot to be desired. Certainly the way
Well,
I
I
mean,
I like it because he has a personality. Most
well,
players in the NFL don't.
but that's one thing. But I'm saying, like, look, I don't agree with how he's, again, the like, he's a quarterback. I don't need to hear medical advice from him or his quote unquote medical opinion. I'm sorry, I just don't. You know what I
I
mean? Like,
know,
I think
but that's what
it's
makes
too.
him. That's what makes him newsworthy. That's what
It's
makes him
yeah, it's
interesting,
oh
right?
sure, it's newsworthy, but again, when it comes to what we're dealing with right now, and it's like you're touting information you got from Joe Rogan, like, Jesus, guy, like, what he's saying.
Wasn't Brady selling stuff on his website that this is to help boost your immune system
Yeah,
during COVID? I mean,
not
look, they're
not
the two
not
best
really. No,
quarterbacks of the era, and they're
hold on,
both.
hold on, hold
Yeah,
on, hold on, hold on. I'm not going to let that slide. That's you're talking
well,
about
true.
two completely different things. You're talking about vitamins, talking about a boosting immune system, not you know uh, medical advice, or the medical community is turning into propaganda, is what he
Well,
said.
the problem is don't listen to either one of them. I mean, they're great
Well, no, well,
quarterbacks. It
that's the
doesn't.
point. But Aaron Rodgers is the guy up there taking every opportunity he can get to talk about his treatment and all this stuff, and kind of keep pushing this. Like, it's kind of dangerous because now you have people that, again, are they fans of Aaron Rodgers, and are they agreeing with him because they're fans? Well, yeah, I'm sure there's things of that. So they're sitting there like, yeah, you know what? Maybe this vaccine isn't safe when the abundance of research says that it
Right.
is, and what he claimed to be a non-reviewed discussion is false. I mean, this stuff goes through.
Oh, you're right. I'm not
So
pushing back at
yeah. So I
that at
mean,
all. No,
but that's, I
it's
think.
that's dangerous. That's scary. But that falls on the person that does do that. That says, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers said I should do this for my
Well,
um
and
coach."
but
They
that's,
said that's
yeah,
not going to my
that's the
doctor.
thing.
That's
Exactly, and
that's
and
yeah.
that's the
No,
thing.
no.
It's like,
Absolutely.
he's a guy who'll sit there, but he likes hearing himself speak. He likes, again. I brought it
Yeah.
up before. It's like every chance he gets, he's going to wince because of the toe, because he's, as
Sure.
great as he
It
is, he's a bit of a drama queen. And So
Oh,
here's
absolutely. Isn't he basically football's liberal version of Kurt Schilling in a sense? Right. I mean, remember Kurt Schilling was a drama king as well. I mean, and likes to hear himself talk and wasn't afraid to have opinions on things he maybe wasn't all that,
yeah. I mean, I
you
get
know,
yeah.
up
I get
in some sense. It's just
yeah.
that
I guess that
Schilling
does make sense a little bit.
Schilling was more of a Fox News guy, and I know Rogers with the anti-vax and all this stuff seems like, you know, but I think at his heart he's a pretty liberal guy. I know he supported Bernie Sanders. I don't know of many NFL quarterbacks that supported Bernie Sanders. So yeah, to me he's kind of like the liberal version of Kurt Schilling. And when you're that extreme on either side, you know, follow with caution because they tend to be bombastic. Use any other adjective you want.
Yeah, and look, I mean, a lot of my pushback with this is the fact that you know, Tom Brady was made like the card-carrying member of the alt-right group because he once said that it would be nice to have a putting green at the White House prior to Donald Trump being elected.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
exactly.
know, guys like Drew Brees and now Rodgers are for the most part skirting. I'm not going to say completely skirting criticism because I am going to play a clip here from Dominic Foxworth, who kind of really went in on Rodgers here. But you know, from a fan perspective, I mean, good God, imagine if Brady said anything remotely close to this. I mean, there'd be pitchforks and torches outside his house. I mean, I know I'm
Yeah,
out
no,
there
there
and
would
I'm
be. Yeah,
watching.
because
So
there's more pushback against Brady because he's been around longer. He's more successful. It's almost like Brady's almost like the guy in high school that everybody, you know, kind of hated because they were always getting A's and they were the star athlete and they had the hot girlfriend and they drove a nice car. They came from, you know, a prominent family. And it was just like, oh, this guy's just too good to be true. That's kind of the pushback on Brady, right? And then he just wins so much.
yeah,
And
I think
I
it's
think you
mostly
see a
the
little bit
winning.
of that the winning and the
Yeah.
winning. It's kind of like Derek Jeter, right? There's a lot at some point they became pushed back to Derek Jeter. It's like this guy can't be this good, right? Like I always thought he was an overrated player. To be honest with you, I thought
No,
A Rod was a superior player.
well,
But
his
but
defense left a
and
lot
I'm
to
not
be
a Red
desired.
Sox guy. Believe I'm not. But Jeter kind of like was the Brady of his time. Like okay, this guy's just too good to be true, right? It's just like he's good looking. He always says the right thing. His teammates love it. It's almost like okay, are there any negatives with this particular person? And there didn't seem to be. Rogers is more of almost like a pathetic character at some point, right? You know, it's just like
Look,
he's just like
he's an
he just
a-hole.
looks like he's got a big black cloud. Oh God, yeah, of course he is. It's the same as Kevin Durant. See, that I like those parallels. That you know, I kind of always put like Brady and LeBron somewhat similar because they're both big into their branding, right?
Oh,
And they're
sure.
both the longevity is ridiculous. I mean, it's just to sit here at one guy's 44 and still right there as the best quarterback in football, and the other guy's in his 19th year playing freaking basketball is still in the discussion for the best player. That's a testament to their greatness, hard work, all that stuff. So they're saying, but Durant and Rogers are the comps. They're the same guy for me in terms of you know they are very thin skinned, passive aggressive, but so damn talented that you know you put up with it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and that kind of leads me into you know this clip. I know you haven't heard it. I know a lot of people out there
I,
have, but I'll play a little bit of it, and then we can react as we do.
okay.
I guess we should put a button on it like this. Do you think he's playing better this season than last season? Because no matter what you say, no matter where he goes, no matter what's going on, this guy is elite when it comes to quarterbacks.
He's a really good quarterback, and you could argue that point. And I think I don't know if you guys watch 30 Rock, but I remember the bubble episode, where John Hamm was so handsome that he could do or say anything, and everyone pretended like it made sense. Like Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball, it is so handsome that he thinks that he can say and do anything to the point where we start to believe that maybe Brian Gutekunst has failed him, when in actuality, no. Brian Gutekunst has loaded that defense with players. He's protected Aaron Rodgers with a great offensive line. He's gotten A.J. Dillon a running attack that supports Aaron Rodgers. He's gotten him a true number one receiver, not number one on the team, number one in the league. All this is happening, and he's still like, nah, I'm good because y'all drafted that quarterback one time and it hurt my feelings. And because you let one of my slot receivers go one time, I got to get Randall Cobb back. Like, it seems kind of outrageous. To me, it feels like this combined with the misinformation that he's putting out, it just feels like he has this, like, victim complex that he wants everyone to feel sorry for him. It's Like, no, everyone's jumping down my throat because I said something that was vastly against science and dangerous. Why are you so mean to me? I just want to have a debate.
So that goes on for like another 2 minutes.
He's a smart guy too, Dominic Foxworth. I always like him. He brings a different perspective to things. Very, very bright guy. I believe he's at Harvard. I mean, he's just a really smart guy. He's a big in the players' union. I like his perspective a lot. I agree with like 97% of that stuff. Absolutely. The only part I'll push back a little bit is, they did draft Devontae Adams, and I think Rodgers has had a lot to do with his development. And the offensive line has been banged up this year, but they've been able to still sustain a good offensive line because the general manager's gone out and got good players. So up it up to 99%. I agree with. Yeah, no, I what Dominic Foxworth said there is it's true. I'm not going to push back on that. I'd be an idiot to push back.
And look, the fans for the most part have adopted that personality because I heard that and I said, okay, this is very evident in this current situation and with him personally. But the fans do the same thing. I mean, you know how many times I've had to hear about, the disadvantages poor Aaron Rodgers has. Oh, he was, we go back to that Cardinals game and this, like, I've seen more twisted truths and half truths and manipulated points of view when it comes to trying to convince someone that Aaron Rodgers is so and so or this or that. Go back to that Cardinals game where like they said, oh, he was without his top 3 wide receivers. You know what his top 4 pass catchers are? Devontae Adams, obviously. Yeah, I'm saying,
right.
Obviously for anyone who hasn't heard me, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, and Randall Cobb. The latter 3 all played in that game. So this idea, you don't have to exaggerate your point to try to make your point for Aaron Rodgers. It's great. The reason people exaggerate it is because the reality is that he's trailing in the MVP race, and this is the transition I'm getting into right now.
He's in Vegas. He is with you, but he is in Vegas.
Well, again, we both know that odds are fairly at, but again, that also represents betting, and I think a lot of
Can
people.
Can I explain why? Like, I'm not a Packers fan. I'm a Rodgers fan. So when he's in Denver next year, I'll become a Broncos fan. If he's hosting Jeopardy, I'll watch every night. Whatever. But the reason that then Favre had a lot of this too, right? When he was there, from the time Lombardi retired in 1968, early 1968 till 1992, that's 24 years. You can make a case that the Green Bay Packers were the worst franchise in football, one of the most irrelevant, other than the fact that they had a great history. They made the playoffs once in a 24-year period. Along comes Brett Favre, makes them relevant. They win a Super Bowl. After Favre, Aaron Rodgers win a Super Bowl, relevant every year. And it's Green Bay. There's not a lot going on there. Like, if you're the star quarterback of the LA Rams, right, Matt Stafford, if it doesn't work well this year and they lose in the divisional round, well, you still got the Lakers, you still got the Clippers, you still got the Dodgers, the Kings. There's a lot to do in LA. In Green Bay, there's nothing to do. The quarterback, I mean, I would think that the quarterback, pictures of quarterbacks are up on the walls right next to, Jesus Christ and whoever else. Like, I would think that in most Green Bay homes, that's the way they're elevated. After 15 years of that, the player probably starts to buy into it, right? And says,
oh, sure.
I think I can walk on water because the fans adore me. I mean, he could come out and probably take a dump on the Green Bay logo at the 50-yard line, and they'd still give him a standing ovation.
Well, look, I mean, that's nothing different from when he was drafted, and he took it personal that he fell to 24th, which, again, yeah, sure. I mean, that's when you expect to go 1, you go 24th, you're going to be disappointed. But, he kind of, to his credit, and kind of speaking to how we feel about him as a person in terms of, just the view of himself that he has, he took that as, oh, I got drafted in, the 6th round. There's this complex, there's this need to, like Dominic Foxworth says, play the victim. And it kind of translates to a lot of his, the fan base surrounding, not you, John, not you, of course not you. When I say the fans, the Rodgers fans.
Objective support.
Exactly.
That's what I call myself.
Exactly. And so when I say Rodgers fans, I certainly am not talking about you. But I've experienced this over the last couple of days because the last couple of weeks I've put together a chart of speak and of sorts. I don't know. Apparently, I can't speak because I don't know. Whatever. We'll just move past that and pretend like I didn't just completely screw up the English language there. I put together a sheet with a collection of data. Now, um, the point of this was to put on paper everything that we know about these two quarterbacks and their respective offenses and teams going into
Mhm.
this last 2 weeks of, like I said, and I say it, I try to say it as much as possible. These are the best two quarterbacks in the league. This race is extremely tight,
Mhm.
but it's Aaron Rodgers who is still playing catch up here. And what baffles my mind is that not only, among, a good group of media, not necessarily voters, and that's the saving grace in all this. A group of media that he is not only the overwhelming favorite, but Brady's completely out of the picture, and I'm just like, it's mind-boggling. So, I put
Mhm.
together this sheet and I put it out there, got a lot of traction, got a lot of comments, and of all the Packers fans or Rodgers fans that responded trying to dispute it, they didn't really have too much other than narratives trying to prove narratives. And by that I mean we devolve into, oh, he is the most incredible thrower of the football, but all these subjective, fairly, you know, non-substance points of view. Because really all you're doing is speaking in hyperbole. So if you can't do
Mhm.
anything but speak in hyperbole to dispute this, then that's not a good case for Aaron Rodgers. And look, the big thing is, like I said, we both agree they're the best two quarterbacks in the league, and you're not going to get that from me. You're not going to get anything different from me. You're not going
Mhm.
to hear me say that Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a great season yet. But when I look at the big picture, obviously we know that Tom Brady's leading in touchdowns, and the bigger point being yards, and it's not just because it's yards; it's because it's nearly 1,000 yards more. I mean, that's a fairly significant number. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously Brady's leading the league in yards per game by virtue of obviously throwing the most yards. Aaron Rodgers is 10th and 11th respectively. That difference comes because he obviously missed the game. The turnovers, and that's the big thing. The interception total, that was kind of like the big you know fighting point for Aaron Rodgers, and rightfully so. He's thrown four of them, and we see it all the time. Touchdown to interception ratio. Touchdown to interception ratio. Well, okay, if you want to just look at it on the surface, that's fine. You get a little bit deeper. You dive a little bit deeper into what actually has happened between these two quarterbacks, and that's where that separation continues. And the reality of it is, John, not too many people want to look beyond the surface, and that's what you know gets me a little bit because like it makes it all mostly narrative driven. And the reality of it is like Tom should be the favorite. Now, I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers certainly has not closed the gap over the last handful of weeks, but simply getting closer doesn't elevate you above. I mean, and that's where we're at right
Yeah, I think it's real close. I think it's going to be close. There's 50 voters. I would assume they'll get the lion's share of votes. There'll be a few sprinkled in for Jonathan Taylor from the Colts. Somehow, someone may vote for Cooper Cup. I just don't like the whole system where you just have one vote. I wish they'd have first, second, and third place, so it would give you a fair indication of how it is. Kind of like the way the Heisman is.
now.
If you just have one person to pick, it becomes kind of tough. Although, it's like, you know, poop or get off the pot, I guess. Pick your MVP. But yeah, I think it's going to be really, really close. I mean, could it be a year where they share the MVP? That would be interesting. It happened in 2003 with Steve McNair and Peyton Manning. So that has to be organic. I mean, that's like trying to draw an inside straight flush to have a co MVP in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. I'd be happy if Bob wins the MVP on February 10th and Aaron wins the Super Bowl on February 13th. I'd be happy with that.
No, I'm sure you would be. I'm sure.
I'll make that trade.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm
Oh
sure you
yeah.
would too. So
No,
because
absolutely.
there used to be a curse of the MVP, right?
But see, I'd rather have both though. You know, and I'm greedy. I'm greedy. What can I say? I admit it. I'm greedy.
Wow.
So,
Gordon Gecko over here.
well, look. I mean, Tom has twice gone to the Super Bowl as that year's MVP, and unfortunately
Right.
has lost twice: 2007 and 2017. Third time's the charm, my friend. For number 8, half as many MVPs, but he will get his 8th Super Bowl. But no, look, I agree. I would agree. I mean, look, would I be upset with a split here? I think it would just current fan base is upside down, so I might be here for the chaos. But it wouldn't surprise me because again, this isn't a race that's that far off. But the thing is, I feel like no one's really giving Rogers any slack for missing a game, and I understand that look, just missing a game, and we'll get into the circumstances of that in just a second. Just missing a game, it's not going to help you. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
But in this situation, and his decision not to get vaccinated guaranteed
Mhm.
that he, obviously up until what yesterday, um, his decision not to get vaccinated guaranteed that if he caught it, short of it happening at the beginning of his bye week,
Mhm.
he would miss a game, and he knows that,
Right.
and he knew that, and he risked it, and he lost. So
Mhm.
that has to count negatively towards him. Now, and that's why when I sit there and people will sit there, oh well, the MVP doesn't get shut out. Well, technically, Aaron Rodgers did get shut out. Okay, his decision caused him to miss a game in which his team
Right.
lost. So you know what? He can't get credit for that, or you can't just ignore that. I'm not saying that's the deciding factor, but you add that into okay, the biggest criticism against Brady, and it's really picked up steam this last like week and a half, is oh he got shut out. Aaron Rodgers lost to the same team 38-3.
Yeah,
So if
I don't
yeah,
hold that
if
against either one of them. It's just somehow New Orleans has a way of defending Rodgers and Brady. God bless them. Dennis
yeah,
Allen should be in the discussion as assistant coach of the year and maybe get another crack as being a head coach
mhm,
because he seems to do, and he did a good job against the Patriots. I mean, he's 4-0 against Tampa, the Patriots, and Green Bay. They're all playoff teams. I
mhm.
mean, I'm not putting obviously the Patriots offense with Green Bay's or Tampa Bay's at the quarterback position, obviously. But yeah, no, give him a lot of credit. No, that's lunacy, because he got shut out. I mean,
Well, and that was one of the when I talk about the retorts to the information that I provided people. That was one of the big ones. It was like, oh, you don't lose, and I'm like, and then I got people telling me that oh, week one doesn't really count because it was like, and I'm like sitting here like, okay, like now
no,
we're just getting, yeah,
they all
exactly.
count.
Like what are we
Yeah,
gonna do?
no,
Go back in history and
now
wipe
we're
out
dealing
week
with
one?
idiots.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
that's it's
Oh,
kind of
well,
absurd. So
here's the other thing too. The other thing, not to interrupt you, but the other thing too is that now the other side would be, well, Green Bay played without Rodgers. How do they look? So you take the guy,
yeah,
and
but
again,
that's I mean
I wouldn't want to see Blaine Gabbert quarterback in Tampa Bay either. So that
exactly. Like look,
we both understand how valuable they are just being in the huddle,
yeah,
right? So that
exactly.
could, so
But
he missed that game. But the other thing too could happen. There is a scenario that this happens where Green Bay wins on Sunday night and Dallas loses late Sunday afternoon to Arizona. Probably not going to happen, but you know how the NFL is. Dallas looked so great last week, and Arizona's looked so bad the last 3 weeks. It
mhm,
wouldn't shock me that Arizona goes into Dallas and wins. The Packers would clinch the number one seed at that point. So
mhm,
he probably would play in week 18 against Detroit. So he would have missed two games, but one of those games being missed because you clinched the one seed. So
yeah,
that can't be against them.
and
So
and
that's
and
a scenario that could happen.
that's important too, and I don't want to sound like I'm dismissing the one seed. But I think that's a factor, but I think the majority of the factors when we again really get into it in terms of production versus I don't want to say help, but advantages. It just the facts are laid out. It favors Brady. Is it a deciding factor? Well, in this case, it kind of is because Brady, like I said, I think he's the lead. He's produced more than anyone. He's been this guy from day one, from the beginning of the season. I don't think anyone's really giving that any stock. It's more or less like, we've talked about it for weeks now. It's like they were just chomping at the bit to knock him down. Every week it was someone new. And some of those guys you look back and it's almost laughable that you would consider like, there were people still trying to convince themselves that Kyler Murray, who had missed 3 games, was still the leader in the MVP race when it was very clearly Brady. You know what I mean? That's how ridiculous it
Yeah.
got. So it's not
They went
surprising.
one without Tyler Murray. They're 0-3 since he came back.
Yeah.
How much is he?
It-
He's not. I don't know how he made the Pro Bowl. To be honest
well,
with
you,
you,
you could say that last year
Stafford,
too. Two NFC
same thing.
quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year was Brady.
It-
This year Stafford got screwed out of it. So.
right. He's got that third slot over those two guys who had better years in their given years, and have obviously a much bigger career base. I mean, I'm not putting Matt Stafford and Tom Brady's class at all, but Stafford's been a damn good quarterback for the last decade, and he should be the third, Pro Bowl quarterback behind Rodgers and Brady. Yeah, I mean, I don't even understand. Again, the fans vote, and Kyler is exciting to watch,
sure.
and all. It's interesting to see what happens, but yeah, the number one seed could play into this. I'm also interested to see the 50 voters, how they are made up. Are there old guys, young guys, all of this stuff? So it may be the older guys just look at the surface stats and vote for Rodgers, and the younger guys may vote for Brady because they're going to go deeper. They're going to look at your chart and say, okay, here's where Brady has the edge over Rodgers in different types of numbers. Or maybe it's just flipped, but the old guys love Brady because he's kind of more like Johnny Unitas, and they're kind of sick of Aaron Rodgers, who's telling people what to do if they have COVID or how to avoid it. So I don't.
The thing that's puzzling for me, though, is like, I sit here and I look at, say, like, PFF. And I know, like, not the guys that are out there putting out all these, like, charts, like, making, like, I mean, every day there's a different, like, algorithm that predicts anything that predicts anything. I don't dismiss, but I don't put a lot of stock in. Like I've said before, looking at numbers after the fact, like raw, like, as far few subjective numbers as possible. Like, there's always going to be subjectivity in a lot of these, but like I like to go for the ones that have at least the least amount of that. Whether it's these predictive models about this, that, and the other. It's like, for example, EPA. That's widely considered one of the efficiency metrics of
not the environmental
no,
agency, right?
no, not the environmental. EPA forever, right?
Rodgers looks like he's that one, right? He's very earthy, crunchy. So,
yeah, exactly. So maybe the EPA, if it is actually the EPA, would love him. But there's three different EPA. There's an EPA from ESPN. There's an EPA from Football Outsiders. There's an EPA from RSBDSM. All the Ben Baldwin site or whatever. So, and all of them say something different. so which one is it? Well, guess what? The one that the RB RS I'm screwing up. RBSDM.com. That's the one people go for because Aaron Rodgers is number one. Well, ESPN in both pass EPA and just overall EPA have Brady at a significantly higher mark, like at 1 or 2 and 1 respectively, whereas Rodgers 5th and 4th ranked in the league. So, people are leaning on specific stats, but the crux of the case, and I'm going to sum it up, John, and I want you to tell me if I'm missing anything for Aaron Rodgers. The touchdown to interception ratio, QBR, passer rating, and obviously the record, right?
Yeah, right. And team record, if he ends up being the one seed, will could be a factor.
And right there, and that's my big issue, because then we look at how those numbers and how that factors in and how that has become what it is, and it all comes down to raw interception totals. And that's why I think that this narrative that Aaron Rodgers is somehow the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to the MVP race is so misguided, because it's all really about those raw interception numbers. Like, and we'll both sit here and agree that Brady's had some misfortune, certainly earlier in the season. Of late, most of the interceptions really have mostly been on him. But again, when I say most, we're talking about small numbers relative to the rest of the quarterbacks in the league. Just removing, say a couple of the very obvious, like the Leonard Fournette throw where he caught it in stride and it's just popped up in the air in a defense. You know what I mean? Eliminating those would probably be enough to elevate Brady in all of those categories. And that's how fickle and that's how thin of a case that is based on just the interception totals, which has a huge impact on passer rating, by the way, because you know what I mean? Passer rating, it's a very broad. I mean, it takes in little context. It's more about just like it's completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions, and yards. And that's it. And the formula is what it is. You have to be able to sit there and realize it's very limited in what it can tell in the scope of the actual play of the quarterback. EPA has its problems. Jimmy Garoppolo, according to EPA, is the number 2 quarterback in the league. Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds like maybe it's based on looks.
Yeah,
like he's
maybe,
the best
maybe.
back. So
Well,
that's
I don't know. I mean, like I
not
said,
that Brady and Rodgers are homely. I mean, they're both pretty good looking dudes themselves. But Garoppolo is at a different level when it
well,
comes to
and
looks. I mean, he's a paisan, of course he
yeah,
is.
Paisan, of course. I know you're a little bit biased with those.
You're Joe Burrow, though. Joe
Yeah.
Burrow's a good looking
Well,
dude.
well,
I like it.
like I said, I care more about the inheritance than the looks here. All these relations that you say that I have, I just
Yep,
want to,
brother.
I just want one of them to come to fruition. That's all.
Well, Rich Uncle Skip, I don't know. I'm guessing Rich Uncle Skip doesn't have a lot of family members that like him. He's kind of like Aaron Rodgers a little bit. I don't know if he's got close relationships. His brother, is a very prominent chef. I forget what his brother's name is a prominent chef. I don't even know what their relationship is, but I know Skip talks poorly about his parents that are both deceased. I think so. It's like, maybe he'll leave you something.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep. You gotta get these stats to him.
I will.
Somehow.
I'm working on it. I'm pushing it.
He doesn't follow anyone on Twitter, but he may start following you. I think that would be his first follow.
That would be something, right? Again, maybe that would go a long way towards getting my inheritance. But as we run out of time here, I'm going to leave you with again just a few numbers. I've talked to exhaustion about drops, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. 31 to 12, by the way, that's a very significant number. Again, just half of those. Take like 5 of them, and that significantly changes the passer rating as well. So keep that in mind. Pass offense DVOA, Buccaneers number 1. Total offense number 1. Points per game number 2. Points allowed 9, which is 12 fewer than the Packers. So they're relatively right in the same ballpark. The Packers, though, 13th in points, 13th in points per game. And this is the big thing, and this was obviously shifted even further apart this past weekend. Strength of schedule for the offense. And I'm not talking about playing a poor. I'm talking about offense versus defense. So it's a little bit more specific to obviously the offense. Strength of schedule for the Buccaneers 1, meaning the worst, the hardest in the league. Packers 19th.
Mhm.
That's a big difference. So
That's significant. I mean, there's so many ways you can look into this. The way I'll look at it this way is that, and look, if either one wins, I mean, obviously want to see Rodgers winning because that's kind of all he's hanging on at this point, right? In terms of his legacy. No, it's true. I mean, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, the NFC is really tough. Look, they're like 4 plays away from being 8-7 instead of 12-3. They're not a dominant 12-3 team. If they get to the Super Bowl and win, great. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can hope. But when you're talking about legacy, that's what he's holding on to is, he'd be only the second guy with 4 more MVPs in the history of the league. That's a pretty good accomplishment if you think MVPs are important. I'll say this, that I think Rodgers wins this with the macro numbers, the macro viewpoint, whereas Tom's winning with the micro, right? Like the deeper, if you really want to dive deep into it, you can see that Brady's had the superior year.
Yeah,
whereas you just look at, again, touchdowns, interceptions, quarterback rating, passer rating, Rodgers hasn't beat there. Now it depends on what the voters look at, right? Because you may just have some guys that don't get into this and go, yeah, Rodgers is the MVP, or some might say Brady's the MVP. So it's interesting to see, like, I'd like to see the makeup of the voters. And,
I would too. That way I know who to contact and message.
Who to send to? Yeah,
yeah.
You know a couple of the voters, so you've got like 48 to go.
Yeah, I'm working on it. You see me, really knocking on doors and just handing out flyers and stuff like that. So I got some work ahead of me. Like I said, I mean, I think again, the more we push, I mean, this could become moot too. I mean, we're talking about the Buccaneers, despite being limited, going in and playing the Jets. I mean,
right.
Obviously I give Brady a lot of credit for having a hard schedule up until this point. The Jets are not a hard team. So, there's an opportunity for him to completely, wipe out anything, because even based on the performance of each quarterback this last week, and based on the numbers that I saw, a week prior, again, on the surface, you would think that people would say, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers had a better game," right? Brady closed the gap on every single efficiency number, including overtaking him on efficiency numbers after that game. But on the surface, John, you would say, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions." But the reality of it was, Brady had a better game and was more negatively impacted by plays outside of his control, which has kind of been the theme at the end of the day, and I'm going to leave this for everyone because I want to just further emphasize the fact that I do wholeheartedly believe that these are the very two best quarterbacks in the league. I know there's a lot of young quarterbacks that are coming up, and it's going to be fun to watch them play. But as good as they are, their production does not outweigh the experience of these two and the success of these two. So that goes a long way, especially when you factor in that they're still at the top of the hierarchy. So these are the two best quarterbacks in the league. The race is extremely tight, but Brady's the leader, and really a pretty straightforward performance the last couple weeks should wrap it up for him if people are really paying attention. And my hope is I can open some eyes. That's what I'm hoping to do.
That's what you're there for. And it could come down to weather too, right? I mean, because Brady's playing at the Jets. Who knows what it's going to be like in New York on Sunday, although from what I'm seeing, the weather is going to be okay here, so I would assume it's going to be okay in New York. Rodgers is playing Minnesota on a Sunday night game in Green Bay. It's supposed to be about 5 degrees at game time, but both Brady and Rodgers are fine in inclement weather. I think it really is like the rubber stamp of why these two guys are so sensational. I mean, Manning was not good in bad weather. He didn't play in it a lot because he was a dome quarterback for most of his career, and the same thing with Drew Brees. These two guys, it's like put them in snow, put them in wind. Wind is always a factor. I don't care how good you are as a quarterback. Wind can dictate that, but cold never really affects these guys. They're just fine.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna they're gonna perform no matter what, and we've seen it happen in the cold year in and year out. So that to me isn't a thing. But to your point, wind is certainly I think the biggest negative weather factor for any quarterback. Wind and you add a little wetness to it, then it makes things a little bit more complicated. But no, it's going to be great. So tomorrow, John, it's the last day of 2021. So maybe we'll give some New Year's resolutions and give some real good takes to bring us into the new year. It should be fun. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me with a very scratchy voice right now. Apparently I'm losing it, but hopefully it'll be back tomorrow because we plan on being back. Have a great day. We'll talk to you.